Hello, all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and each week I'm joined by some of my favorite husky, hairy, huggable homos to talk about something near and dear to our hearts. That, of course, being movies. And it's been a hot minute since we've done this. Of course, the holidays happened, and we all kind of took some time to be with each other and do fun things, hopefully over the holidays. But we're back in the saddle, and we're hitting 2021 pretty strong with not one, but two movies this week. We're going to be talking Wonder Woman 1984, as well as Catching Up with Soul. Two films that a lot of people saw over the holiday break. This is going to be our first opportunity. I'm so excited to sit down together as a group and talk these movies through. So, hopefully you are ready to join us. Say hi in the live chat. We've got a few folks with us already. Hello and welcome. Before we jump into the movie conversations, though, let me introduce you to my fantastic co-hosts. Jim Pugliafico is here with us in the virtual studio. Hey, sweetheart. How's it going?
It's going good. Happy New Year, everybody. We're only a few days into the new year, and, the future looks brighter, right? I don't know. We'll see. So far, I'm not complaining. I'm excited to get back into talking about movies with you guys. Another whole year of movies in front of us. It's kind of exciting.
All right, we're going to pause there for just a second. Sorry, folks. Hang tight. We're having a little bit of a difficulty here with audio.
No, nothing from me?
No, I can still hear Jim. Brad, you can't hear him?
Wow.
Oh, Brad, you can hear me?
Hello? Can you hear anybody, Brad?
Hello?
Hi, I can hear you.
Hey, now I can hear you. I couldn't hear either of you.
Oh, okay. No. Well,
weird.
Fun.
I don't know what happened.
Hey,
all right.
We can hear each other now.
Oh, goodness. All right. Well, Jim, did you get to finish your intro, or did we need to back it up?
I finished the intro, I thought, but if you guys can't hear me, I hope it's in the live show. We'll see.
All right.
Well, I'll do it over.
Yeah, go ahead and just reintroduce yourself real quick, if you don't mind.
Hey, everybody. Happy New Year. I'm excited to be here. We're just a few days into the new year, and we have a whole nother year of movies ahead of us. So we're excited for that. And we're going to start off with two tonight. Looking forward to talking about these two with you guys.
Definitely pumped to chat with you, Jim, about these films. We've talked about them a little bit, but we've kind of held our comments in reserve until we could get together with Will, who is also with us here on the show. Will, it's been a little bit. How's it going?
Hey, Brad. Hey, Jim. Hey, everyone tuning in live and listening to this later. Happy New Year. 2020 is over. Everything that's wrong in the world is now right. Everything is smooth sailing with no issues from here on out is what I'm led to believe, right? That's where we're at? That's what's happening?
Yes.
I can guarantee it, Will. I guarantee it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the Brad and Jim guarantee.
Money back guarantee.
If anything goes wrong in 2021, you get your money back on this show. Yeah, every cent.
Oh goodness. Well, it is indeed a new year here on the Movie Bears podcast. Before we adjourned for the holiday break, we celebrated our 8-year anniversary on the show, and we're kicking things off strong, talking about Wonder Woman 1984 and Soul this week. I think it's going to be a good conversation. Before we get to that, though, just wanted to drop a quick note. We are using a new streaming platform. So we may have some hiccups as we get things going. This is our first time utilizing this. If any of you out there who are watching live, and we see a bunch of you are, hello, welcome. Feel free to let us know if there are any audio or video issues. Just drop us a note in the chat, or even just say hi so that we know you can hear us. We would appreciate that greatly as we get things dialed in with our new platform. So, all of that said, we are going to go ahead and get things rocking and rolling here with our first review of this episode. We're going to kick things off with Wonder Woman 1984. Of course, as always, we want to make sure you're aware that we're not going to spoil this film, at first, at least. We're going to talk about it spoiler-free for probably 10 minutes or so. Then we'll give you a spoiler warning before we jump into the treacherous waters of the spoilery sea. So if you haven't seen Wonder Woman 1984 yet, that's completely okay. Feel free to stick around, hear our impressions if that's something that you would enjoy. Just know that spoiler warning is coming. We'll keep you safe. Jim, Will, are you ready?
Yes.
Hopping in my jet, grabbing my lasso.
What jet?
Tierra is right. Where'd it go? Oh no, not again!
Don't forget your gauntlets. Your
bracers are on.
Ching, 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 ching.
Yeah, I'm ready to lasso you up and hear the truth about what you're feeling about this movie. I don't know. Like that.
All right. Well, don't forget your bustier made of gold. You're gonna need it.
I never do.
All right, here we go. Our discussion of Wonder Woman 1984. All right, Jim, if you don't mind kicking this one off for us, give us a little bit of background on this film. I imagine, most people have probably seen this movie if they wanted to. But also include your initial thoughts. What did you think? Did this work well for you? Did it maybe not work so well? Go for it.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about Wonder Woman 1984. This is the second full-blown Wonder Woman movie after Wonder Woman came out in 2017, I think. And this one was, at least by me, was highly anticipated. I don't remember what everybody on this podcast thought of the original Wonder Woman, the first one. But we, I know that I was really looking forward to this movie because I liked the first Wonder Woman quite a bit. I was actually blown away by a lot of things in that movie. This one, I will read the IMDb summary without giving away the spoilers of the, who the villains are, because in the IMDb, unfortunately, they do talk about the villains in this one. So I will avoid that. But the description of the film is pretty short. It says, rewind to the 1980s. As Wonder Woman's next big screen adventure finds her facing two all new foes. So yes, we've got the 80s, which everybody loves. How can you go wrong with the 80s? As Merlin smacks my monitor around, and also two villains in this movie. We'll talk about them when we get into spoilers, but we won't spoil that right now. Yeah, my expectations were pretty high for this movie. Unfortunately, and this movie's okay. Ultimately, I thought this movie was fine. I'd say it was just okay for me. It didn't match my expectation. I was really expecting this movie to take off. There's some things I really loved about this movie, especially the beginning couple of scenes in the movie I thought were pretty good and were really fun. And then the movie really got kind of off its rocker a little bit. I don't know if it was a tone issue or what it was. It almost feels to me like this movie smacks of just studio, too much studio in management involvement and not enough director vision. in this movie, because a lot of the what came off from the first movie that I thought was kind of Patty Jenkins' vision did not translate to this movie, unfortunately. So yeah, I think this one for me is, I think if you're into Wonder Woman, I think you should see it. And as Brad said earlier in the show, I think that pretty much everybody who liked the first movie probably has maybe already seen this movie. It is available on HBO Max right now. Is that right? I think that's the only platform it's still available on. So you're gonna have to find. Well, it's in theaters now. If you're one of those people that are brave enough to venture out to theaters, but if not, and you're trying to stay safe and sane, then it is available on HBO Max for video on demand. But for me, this is an all right movie. I'm going to recommend it for Wonder Woman fans so they can see how it stacks up against the first movie. But for me, it's a pale comparison to the first movie.
Brad, I can't hear you.
That's on me because I clicked the mute button. Buttons in different places. All right, so we've got kind of a soft recommend from you, Jim.
I think it's a soft recommend. I think casual fans and stuff will like it, but I will just say, kind of keep your expectations in the ballpark for this one. Not be a jerk like me and expect great things from this movie, because I just don't think you're going to get those.
All right. Well, thank you for giving us your initial thoughts on the film. I'm sure we'll hear more about why you feel the way you do when we get to our spoiler section. Guys, oh my gosh, I have an incredibly exciting announcement. Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Mm-hmm.
Mary Kay Meadows is with
Mary's
us on the
back.
show.
Yay!
We love it when Mary joins.
We do. Mary says, hi, guys. Hey, very happy 2021. So glad to see you. Welcome. Hope
So
you and the family.
Exciting. Yay.
Yeah.
Want to hear what Mary thinks about Wonder Woman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, feel free to drop your thoughts.
And her kids, too. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Give us those deets. We want that juicy goss.
That's right, we do. Well, while we wait for thoughts from Mary and the fam, Will, how about you? Were you kind of in line with Jim on this one, or did it maybe trip your fancy a bit more?
It's so weird to think about and to talk about this movie because the last couple of weeks, the discourse around this movie has been absolutely terrible. The people that absolutely loved this movie were had their claws out for the people that absolutely hated it, and vice versa. So I would like for all of those people, everyone who loved this movie, just go over here to the left for a second. Everyone who absolutely hated this movie, just go over here to the right. Okay, people that love this movie, you're absolutely right. It's the best movie ever. Please don't flame me on social media. Those of you on the right who hated this movie, oh my God, it's the worst thing ever. I never want to watch this piece of shit ever again. For everyone else,
way to take a stand, Will.
Yeah, I know, right? That's called hedging my bets. No, for everybody else, this is a movie that I did not enjoy watching, but it's not like the worst movie ever. It's a movie with I think it has way more heart than it has ability to follow through on the message that it wants to follow through on. I think there are stronger intentions than there are execution with this film. And that's probably all across the board here. I think one of the things that Gal Gadot is one of those actresses who I think she looks the part of Wonder Woman very well. I don't think she's the strongest actress. I think she's really good at looking like a badass and delivering kind of like one-liners. I think she does a really good job of that. And that's sort of a holdover from the Snyder era of these DC movies, right? Being able to just sort of like look cool. I think in the first movie, a lot of the chemistry that she really had with Chris Pine, he's not necessarily the strongest actor in the world either, but I think that he carried a lot more of that. And I think that there are sequences where Gadot has to do a lot more of the heavy lifting in this movie, and I think that I think some of the weaknesses fall through. But I don't think it's just her. There's some pretty rough CGI in this movie. The story is way too long and has too many different things that don't really interconnect until they do, and when they do, it's sort of in a like I don't care about this style mode. I didn't like watching this. I do not think this was a very good movie. I don't think this was a good follow-up for Patty Jenkins. And I also don't fully blame Patty Jenkins. I mean, famously, she went on record after the first movie and said she had a different ending in mind. And then sort of the studio said she had to do that one. I think there was obviously more extended universe stuff that they wanted to do after this movie. And it almost feels to me like there are parts of this film that were inserted to set up something that would show up in a later movie that is no longer going to happen now. And then parts of that had to be like stripped out and shucked out and sort of like worked around. And because of that, you have these really weird non sequiturs that don't really do anything. I give it a C+ for effort. A D- for execution. If you're a Wonder Woman fan, watch this. There's definitely some fun fan service in there, but otherwise, it's actually kind of a hard movie for me to recommend.
Oh boy! Oh boy! Oh boy! All right. Well, our resident comics expert on the show is not really recommending this too much. All right. Well, that's a soft recommend and kind of a hard pass for most people, I guess.
Yeah. Jim said something earlier about like the first few scenes are fun and then it sort of tapers out. And I do want to like put another tally mark in that. Like, I mean, if the entire movie was the first 10 minutes, I would have loved it.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because Mary Kay Meadows, who we love and adore, can't say that enough, did weigh in with her thoughts for her and the family. She says, well, I really enjoyed the entire intro, but then it went downhill from there for me. And then she goes on to say, after the intro, it was too boring for my kiddos. Didn't hold
That's
their
not
interest.
good. No, that's not
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. If it doesn't keep kids glued to the screen, that might be a little bit.
If a superhero can't keep kids interested, then you've got an issue.
You've got a problem. And I mean, I think I had the same problem. Jim, Will, Mary, the kids. I really enjoyed the setup of this film. Probably the first 15 minutes or so I thought were really fantastic. Thought we were in for some really great things. You know, I tried to keep my hype baggage from the first movie in check because I feel like the first film was just so freaking good. But this time around, you know, after that first 15 minutes, they just started adding layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of stuff. And it was almost like they weren't interested in like removing those layers or letting us kind of breathe in those layers. It just became this convoluted mess of just I don't even know what. The pacing was pretty bad with this film. Like we're halfway through the movie and like the main plot points haven't even kicked in yet. And I'm like, what is going on? Like we checked the runtime because we were watching it at the projector room and fun story. We didn't mean to, but a cat walked on the Apple TV remote, paused the movie. And we're like, wait, there's still an hour and a half left in this movie and nothing's happened yet? How is this possible? Anyway, you know, it was great seeing Gal Gadot back, Chris Pine, some of the other cast members. I mean, Kristen Wiig, she's fun. It was kind of cool to see her here. We'll talk more about that later. Pedro Pascal coming off of season 2 of The Mandalorian. Mando's in this film, and oh my gosh, I wish he wasn't. Not because he was bad, but just they gave him a terrible character. The writing for that character was awful. It is a travesty. I mean, I'm not a comics expert, but I read a lot of DC comics. Maxwell Lord is a very famous figure in DC comics, and holy bejesus, I can't even believe that's Maxwell Lord. But there's a whole lot to talk about in spoilers. No sense delaying the inevitable. Maybe for me, this is a hard pass. Really didn't enjoy this movie overall, but I'll say this: everyone has different tastes, and just because we're not super huge fans of this film, doesn't mean you won't love this. Lots of people on my social media feeds, friends and family, really enjoyed this film quite a bit. So if you're like, well, I've heard it's not good, so I haven't seen it yet. Now you guys are saying it's not good. I don't know if I'm going to see it. Just see it on your own. I think you have until January 17th or something before it enters that period where it's not available for a while. Make your own opinion on this film, and then let us know what you thought. We'd be curious to know. Mary says, don't forget Pedro Pascal played Prince Oberyn in Game of Thrones. Mary, I've tried to erase Game of Thrones from my memory.
No,
I have.
No, I do not.
Yep.
We're going to get into that one of these days, but not right here.
We can do that, but I've obliviated myself. I've
Mary,
removed all memories.
Don't let that sway you. I'm still a big Game of Thrones fan.
Hey, guys. Hamstract is here with us in the chat. He says, sup. So you guys loved Wonder Woman 84 too.
You might say that we are WW84 stands. Yeah.
I think that might be a sarcastic comment, but I'm not sure.
I think so too. Knowing Hammy, I would not be surprised at all. Also, oh my gosh, Adrian frickin' Charlie is here from
Adrian of the Crow Show is here.
Green Screen of Death podcast and the Crow Show. Check his stream out on Twitch. So many good times with Adrian. We miss you, friend. It's been forever. He says, hello, cuties. Ooh.
Follow him on TikTok too. His TikTok is fire. That's what is that what we say? Is it fire? Is it lit, fam?
Is it fire still, or is it something else this year? I don't know.
I'm still saying on fleek, and apparently that's from 8 years ago, and you're not supposed to do that anymore. So who knows? Who knows anymore? But anyway, babe, Adrian Charlie says Game of Thrones is amazing. Jim is correct to be upset with that.
Yeah.
You know what? It's subjective. If that's what you guys want to think, that's fine. But
I'm just glad they nailed the finale.
Yeah, they nailed the ending. What else is there to criticize?
Oh God. All right. What did we get?
Different episode.
But Adrian says he misses us way too much. Adrian, the feeling is mutual. Can't wait to get vaccinated for COVID to go away and we get back to going to film festivals and seeing your handsome smiling face as soon as possible. So, all right. Well, Jim, Will, any other non-spoilery thoughts? Just super quick, because spoilers is going to be our bread and butter.
Yeah, I think one other thing that I think is sort of an unforgivable sin of this movie is that for a movie that is marketed as being of the 80s and happening in the 80s and with a lot of great 80s music in the trailers, I was really underwhelmed by the lack of actual 80s music content in the film itself. I think there is one part of like a Frankie Goes to Hollywood song playing at one point, and I think the rest is just Hans Zimmer's score, which, you know, Hans Zimmer's score is great, but I really just, if this one, I really wanted this one, if it was going to be kind of like a fun, kind of campy version of the movie, I think then at that point it needs to lean more into like the fun, campy 80s music instead of like the bombastic, epic strings and scores and stuff like that. So it's a huge missed opportunity.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I was expecting, not that it has to be Guardians of the Galaxy, but I was thinking like, I'm going to walk out of this movie buying a soundtrack full of 80s songs I already own. They're just compiled under a Wonder Woman, you know, artwork piece. And yeah, that was so not the case.
No, and that's a shame. I mean, except for some notable sequences, it wasn't, they kind of almost dropped the whole 80s thing. I mean, except for a couple of things that could have happened in any time frame, right? But we'll get to that here in just a minute, I'm pretty sure.
Indeed, we will. Yeah. All right. Well, Jim, Will, spoiler time. Are we good with it?
Yeah. Let's put our lasso of truth around this thing.
I wish to hear what you've what's waiting for us in spoilers.
All right. We're going to go ahead and open the can of worms that is spoilers. If you've not yet seen Wonder Woman 1984 and you don't want to be spoiled, this is your opportunity to step away for about 20 minutes. Come on back for our discussion of Soul coming up here in just a little while. But I've rambled long enough. Well, almost. We have another comment. Oh my gosh. Ben Woolley says, hi, sexy bears.
Hi, Ben.
Hey, yourself. Mr. Sexy Bear. Good to see you. Welcome.
Well, hey there,
Glad
Ben.
to have you with us. All right. Spoilers for Wonder Woman 1984 are officially fair game. Where do we want to start?
I'm going to start by saying we talked about how I think all of us, and even Mary, talked about how the beginning of the film was strong. I mean, there's two scenes back to back that I thought, like, okay, we're in for a ride here. This thing's going to be fun. The first scene is Diana Prince as a young girl getting to participate in a competition for something. I don't know what it was, like, American Ninja Gladiator or something. And, and it was a pretty exciting scene. I thought, it had a lot of, I'm like, okay, they're dropping us right in here. This is going to be fun. And it was kinematic, and I don't think it was very boring at all. And it kind of moved right along. And then there was that scene. And then shortly after that, there was a scene in a shopping mall in 1980s. It was kind of a, Wonder Woman comes to the rescue, and some thugs are trying to pull off rob a store or something. I don't know what they're doing, pull off a heist. And I'm like, okay, that felt 80s to me. It had a kind of that element of cheese that kind of the original Wonder Woman kind of TV series had. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun. They're trying to inject some fun into this one. And I'm like, and it was very cheesy. The special effects weren't that great, but I was having fun with the movie up to that point. I was not bored at all. And it was right after that, I think, that we started getting into plot. And then almost nothing happened for the next 45 minutes. And that's inexcusable when you have all your best stuff kind of up front, and now you're leaving your audience hanging. And, for a 2.5 hour movie, that's the movie's incredibly long already. You can't tell me that it couldn't have been tightened up and made a little bit more, snappier paced, I guess. And that was my major issue with the problem. That plus, I think it felt like Wonder Woman kind of disappeared for a lot of this movie. And that may be due to the fact that there were two villains playing off of each other for a lot of the movie, right? And their plot lines kind of intersected. The two villains being Max Lord, as we mentioned, and Cheetah, right? Kristen Wiig's Cheetah character. Like, who did it better, Cats or Wonder Woman 1984? That's what I want to know, because I can tell you right now, I'm leaning towards Cats. It was way more fun.
Oh my gosh.
That's kind of where I stand on some of the things. Go ahead. You guys, I know there's a lot. We're gonna dive into this.
Yeah, there is a lot. Like, I think that there's I said before that the music was a missed opportunity, but I think that it's much more symptomatic of, I think, the bigger issue with this movie is that I don't think it knew what it wanted to be, even though I think some of that DNA was like right there for the grabbing, which I think makes it all the more frustrating. There were moments where I found myself wanting to give parts of this movie a pass, because I could see that it was maybe channeling the way campy adventure 80s movies presented their stories. Like the mall sequence at the beginning, at first I thought, oh, this is a little corny. And I thought, well, that's kind of how these types of movies were in that era, whether they be superhero or not, like that. And I was willing to go for that, but I don't think that it really committed to any of the bit. And part of that is, and I mentioned this before, it's still carrying the baggage of it created as part of that Snyderverse, and it's part of it, which was very grimdark. And we've started to see some of these movies like Aquaman and Shazam, Birds of Prey, parts of Wonder Woman start to pull themselves away from that, but they all still exist in this tonally homogenous universe where they can't fully escape from that. I think because of it, this movie was never able to really be the type of movie that I think it needed to be. I think it needed to be something, and I don't want to say I want James Gunn to make all of the different movies, like I see is making the new Suicide Squad. but just the way that he sort of picked a flavor and a tone for Guardians of the Galaxy, which if there's a new Guardians of the Galaxy, you know what flavor and tone that's going to be now, because they rubber stamped that all over those characters. I wanted to see a little bit more of that, of something to be them to really commit to something with this Wonder Woman character and this Wonder Woman movie. And instead we got a half measure. We didn't get a fun adventure movie. We didn't get, a serious movie about, about this, be careful what you wish for. We didn't get any of that. We got a kind of a middle of the Venn diagram superhero movie, and it was much weaker for that.
Well, and it's interesting. We mentioned the pacing earlier and some of the choices that are made here. Mary calls out that, while they were watching, Carson got frustrated at the beginning because during the mall scene, Wonder Woman kept roping the guys and then letting them go and flying around and then roping them again. And, it was just happening over and over and over again. And she almost spent more time fighting the guys in the mall than she did fighting Cheetah in their final epic showdown. And I think that first scene is really meant to set up sort of the fun of this film. But when that's your strongest, most fun action sequence, I think that's a big problem. And Jim, you mentioned, this movie has two villains, right? Cheetah, who Adrian Charlize's cats did it better, by the way, FYI.
Of course.
But we have Maxwell Lord as well, this businessman who's got his hands on this, ancient monkey's paw, and he's able to grant wishes, and he's manipulating people into making wishes on his behalf to give himself power and try and reform the world. And it's okay, so Wonder Woman, fights Cheetah, defeats Cheetah. Cheetah's no longer a thing. Well, now it's time to stand off against Maxwell Lord, and the solution is to wrap her lasso around his foot and broadcast a message asking people to unwish their wishes and what?
Renounce their wishes or
What?
something? Yeah.
Even so, a few different things. First of all, that action sequence was a little frustrating because I don't feel as though there was resolution to the stakes that the movie put in front of it. Right before that scene was everything was whipping around, and Wonder Woman's thing was, I can't get my lasso close to him. It's whipping around and she just can't do it. And the solution is, oh yeah, but she actually did it. There wasn't we didn't see her outsmart him or outstrength him or out communicate him.
It just happened.
It just happened. And then beyond that, I think the whole wish thing does become, at least as it is, it raises more uncomfortable questions than it does answers. Everyone in the world, I guess, according to this finale, had to renounce their wish. So if someone was hey, I'm dying of an incurable disease, I wish to be better, that person had to have made the choice because Wonder Woman said, believe in your truth, just say, yep, guess I'm gonna die now. Imagine I'm sure this movie posits, I would go as far as to say this movie is very pessimistic, because for this movie to have the ending that it does, it has to posit the fact that every single person in the world made a selfish, terrible wish, and that every then person, just because of those words, then decided just to renounce that terrible wish. This movie posits that not a single person in the world would say, hey, what about world peace? We don't get any of that. And again, I don't necessarily have a problem with that if the movie is campier or funnier or weirder, but this is a movie that wants to say, be careful what you wish for and let's play with the consequences of wishes. But I don't think it does so within its own narrative.
Yeah, because like you said, Will, all the wishes were terrible wishes, right? And if that's the message of the film, that, be careful what you wish for, this can be dangerous and selfishness and whatever. That you could see that coming a mile away, way too early, and they kept beating that drum and louder and louder and louder and louder. And you're like, I get it, let's come up with a more interesting idea, and it never did.
Well, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Hamstart brings up a good point. He says, why didn't Wonder Woman just make a wish that everything went back to normal? Now, I think the answer to that is she'd already made her wish earlier in the film, right? She wanted Steve back. She got Steve back. in an incredibly problematic way. I don't know if we even want to get into that, but like she could have in her broadcast message to the world, she could have just said, "Hey, this guy's totally fucked it up. Could somebody please just like wish that this never happened?" Like it could have been resolved way easier.
Well, and that, I mean, that's part of it, right? Because first of all, yeah, it is problematic, and I think it's okay to flag that. The whole Steve Trevor thing. This is a character who is supposed to be our hero, and the consequence of her bringing someone back to life in a way that takes over the body of someone without their consent, and then more things happen without that person's consent. The consequences aren't, I did an awful thing to this person. I've robbed them of days of their life. I put them in peril. I've used their body against them. The consequences were, oh, now my powers are weaker. And I think that's a kind of a shitty cop out. But you're right also, Brad. Like there are, if you're going to play with wishes and along that line, I think that you can have a different solution than everyone in the world renouncing. Someone making the wish, or even, I mean, hell, it's a little corny, but again, I would be okay with corny if the son, Maxwell Lord's son, hadn't made his wish, and just if he had come in and they had a moment and Wonder Woman helps connect them or whatever it is,
right,
and he makes the wish of, I just wish things could go back to the way they were, and then they go back to the way they were, something like that. And it's a child's wish that Wonder Woman helps facilitate to reconnect her son with the father. I think that becomes a stronger way of doing it than just everyone in the world just deciding, yep, fuck all this money.
I mean, they did reshoots to add a Christmas scene. Why not go all the way and have the kid make his Christmas wish? And that's the solution.
Right. I mean, that was so obvious that, like, we get to the end of we get to one of the endings of the movie, because this movie had probably like 3 or 4 endings. We get to one of the endings of the movie, and then there's this other scene that takes place like randomly at Christmas time. Like it's snowing, people are out in the street shopping. I'm like, what the fuck is this scene? Like, where obviously some studio execs like, you know what? We decided to since we pushed this movie back to Christmas, we got to have a Christmas scene. So go shoot one, Patty. And that's what they came up with. And it felt so tacked on that it was kind of like the last straw for me. And we'll get into like the mid-credit scene and stuff like that when we get there. Just like I said, other than those first 2 scenes at the front of the movie, I think, unfortunately, there was nothing for me after that.
And I will give this movie credit for, I think, one of the things that it tried to do. I think it failed to do this thing, but I think what it tried to do is it wanted to create a story where the solution wasn't, a roundhouse kick, an energy blast, or something like that. It's kind of an admonition of like truth and love, and that feels like that's a thing that is a very Wonder Woman thing to do. Yes, she's a badass Amazonian warrior, but she's also someone who is very resolute in her in her compassion for other people. I like that they wanted to use that as the solution, and I wish that it had been a better movie, because I would love to be celebrating that fact right now, that this wasn't fully a punch 'em up. But again, it didn't commit to the bit. We had to get through a bunch of punch 'em up stuff just to get to that sort of like weak ending.
Yeah. It's too bad that this movie didn't get to see the reaction to Cats before it was already in the can, and they had one of their villains cemented as Kristen Wiig in a cat suit. It brought me right back to that. Like, oh my God, this is exactly as bad as Cats is. In terms of the look of this villain.
It's too bad, because the Barbara Minerva Cheetah character, like, she has this interesting start, right? She's this mousy girl, nobody likes her, and she starts becoming friends with Diana, and rather than Minerva like becoming a better, more confident person because she's getting to know a friend and they're going out to lunch together, she makes a wish on this thing to be more like Diana, and she loses her glasses and she gets super strong. And Adrian Charlie calls out in the chat. He says, "Can we abandon removes glasses, girl gets hot as a trope, please?" And And yeah, Adrian, I agree with that completely. I just wish that if they were going to turn Kristen Wiig's, you know, mousy girl into like, I'm a alpha predator or whatever the fuck she said, that it involved more than just taking off her glasses, putting on some Spanx for half the film, and then getting into a cat suit. It was weird.
It was weird. And going back to that beginning, I would say that there was way more chemistry during those first couple of like the lunch scene and all of that between Godot and Wiig than there was between Godot and Pine, to the point where Wonder Woman has historically like sapphic roots in the comics. She has been one to take both a male and a female lover. And I think that you could probably cut Chris Pine from this movie entirely and have an exploration of, granted, it's tragic for Wonder Woman to have to deal with yet a second, like maybe lost love type thing. If maybe she starts to connect with the Barbara Minerva character, and then she goes evil because of wishes and stuff like that. But at the same time, it would have cut a lot of the runtime out of this movie if you'd cut the Pine stuff and laser focused it a lot more. I would have loved to have seen Wiig and Godot play more into those roles. I think you could do that in such a way that doesn't become like a barrier gaze style trope. I think there are ways that you can write that confidently and comfortably and still make Wonder Woman the amazing character that she is, while exploring those roots and while being true to kind of what this movie needed. And it didn't do that.
Yeah, cut out. Great idea, Will. I mean, here we go again, rewriting movies, right? But like cut out the Chris Pine stuff. Have some kind of stronger connection between Diana and the Barbara Minerva character, right? Which I thought was I sensed a little bit of that, but I wish it was a little bit stronger, right? And then maybe develop that a little bit and have the heartbreak of having one of the people she really cares about turn into some kind of villain. And then maybe bring Chris Pine back in, a third movie or something. It's just, and then have them deal with that situation, Mm-hmm. It just would have been a little bit better for me than what we got.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we got the movie that we got. Will, you commented being true to Wonder Woman's roots. Speaking of Wonder Woman's roots, I don't feel like we can move on from this film without talking about that cameo at the end.
Mid-credits.
By Linda Carter. Of course, not playing Wonder Woman herself, playing the ancient, warrior of Themysciran legend, who originally had the Power Rangers Goldar armor for some reason, and, it got passed down to Wonder Woman eventually. But did you guys cringe at that cameo? Was it just me?
I definitely did. I love Linda Carter. Obviously, she basically made Wonder Woman what it is today as a character. I was kind of hoping they might incorporate something to do with her, but I thought that scene was just like, okay, I used to be Wonder Woman, Linda Carter, done. You know what I mean? Like, come on. It's just so clumsy and I don't know, just had no emotion for me whatsoever.
Well, for me, it's and say it with me, boys and girls, because I'm going to say the word that I've used so many times throughout this review. It was a missed opportunity, because I think that if you're going to use Linda Carter in that type of role, there's a strong part of me that guesses that they were probably going to do something more with her in like a Wonder Woman 3. And now because of, COVID and shooting schedules and stuff like that, that they just decided just to do it now or something along the line. That's my my kind of I'm guessing what had to have happened, because at no point does she really interact with anything that happens on screen. And in fact, she's sort of like a quick cutaway backstory thing, which is only used to explain why Wonder Woman has the armor from the Kingdom Come arc, which doesn't do anything in the movie.
Not for me. Yeah.
The only thing that it does is it looks cool on the poster. So I feel like there was something that got rewritten or written out or adjusted because of future COVID schedule. And because of that, you underuse Linda Carter. I think if you're going to do something with this, kind of like this Themysciran character of lore or something like that. You save her for the third movie, and maybe you don't give her like, you know, like a full part of the movie, but even just having a scene where she just exchanges a word with Wonder Woman would be kind of nice, right? Wouldn't it have been cool to have seen like Linda Carter and Gal Gadot just say, oh hi, or something like that, even just for a second? But we don't get that. You know, we get something that was, you know, to my knowledge, the two actresses have never met. At least as far as the movie is concerned, I would have nothing to prove otherwise.
Yeah, it felt as tacked on as that Christmas scene did.
Oh,
really.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Kevin Ryan is with us on the show. Kevin, hello. Kevin says that was the worst superhero cameo / credit scene I've ever witnessed. Yeah, I get really excited when I see Linda Carter show up in things. She made some cameos in Smallville and some other DC stuff. And you know, we didn't get it last movie. So I was like, well, maybe we're not going to get one. And I'm maybe okay with that. Let's let this stand on its own. Let's be its own thing. It doesn't need fan service more than it already has. And then boom, there's Linda Carter.
Yeah, and I know that there's probably a lot of fans out there that just were thrilled to see her appear in the movie in any capacity, right? And so I don't want to minimize their experience. You know, if they love that, that's fine. It just, like I said, it didn't work for me very well.
How much cooler would it have been if Linda Carter showed up, picking up the discarded like bits of the armor and like saving Wonder Woman from Cheetah or something? Like,
yeah,
you know, the whole fucking world's going crazy. Apparently, there are no other superheroes in 1984 that can come to help out because, you know, Batman and Superman are like 4 years old and 10 years old or something. I don't know. So it would make sense to me if she's still kicking around as a hero, you know.
Why was it set in 1984 in the first place? Was there a story reason for this?
So I can tell you what that is. One, I can say there's two reasons for it. One, I think that they are trying to pull themselves away from the Snyder stuff. And so I think they thought 80s is fun. Marvel's having some fun with sort of different time frames and sort of playing that. So why don't we do it too? I think there's some of that. But two, they've got Wonder Woman tied up in the Batman v Superman / Justice League / like all of the stuff that's kind of happening in the present right now. And they're trying to connect the story of what happened to her during her, like, I'm underground, like, because basically she had these adventures during World War I, operated in the shadows, and then rematerialized in 2016. So this is just trying to show, like, actually Wonder Woman was doing some stuff in between. And I think that's cool.
I mean, that's why she told the kid in Egypt,
yeah, and the whole world, when they made their wishes, was like, I think one person was like, also, I'm gonna wish that everyone forgets about seeing Wonder Woman tell us to.
Right. And let's not forget that apparently, you know, computers back then were able to be turned into TVs, even though they didn't have any kind of technology that would allow them to do that. But whatever. Hamstruck says Wonder Woman should have teamed up with Helen Slater from Legend of Billie Jean. Interesting. Could I instead have a Linda Carter as an older Wonder Woman and Helen Slater as an older Supergirl team up movie? Maybe even just a short. I would love that. That would be amazing.
You know what's weird? I guess if everyone was watching all of this stuff and the Linda Carter character is walking around, did she not make a wish that this bad thing not happen? Because I guess
no. Every point of logic that comes up makes me dislike this movie more. And I didn't think that was possible. Anyway, well, my goodness, Sally Draper, I think it's time to maybe move on. We've got a whole nother movie to discuss. We had a great question in the chat earlier while we were talking, and this might be a fun way to kind of segue. What is your favorite 80s song? Well, let's start with you.
Well, it'd probably be easy to pick something by Bowie or something like that. I'm going to pick something that feels I want to pick a song that feels like it's an 80s song. Like it is a straight down the middle, like 80s as fuck song. Flock of Seagulls, but it's a Space Age Love Song. That song never fails to like get me excited and also make me feel all that like over the top 80s goodness. A Space Age Love Song by Flock of Seagulls.
Solid choice. Jim, I know you have a huge musical breadth of knowledge and experience. It might be hard to pare it down to just one. But what's one of your favorite 80s songs?
I'm gonna say The Cars, Let's Go. It's one of my favorite songs. It's a great driving song. It's not like I mean, they had synth and all through their songs by Greg Hawkes, but like Let's Go is it's just a great like propulsive rock and 80s song. I think it's timeless. I can listen to it now and it doesn't sound 80s to me. It sounds great.
I love it. Also a solid choice. For me, it's a song that I would have loved to see show up in Wonder Woman 1984, possibly as the backdrop of a montage of Diana and Barbara Minerva going shopping and going out to lunch and kicking around by the pier. And that's Cyndi Lauper's Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Speaking of missed opportunities.
Why not? Right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So, Adrian Charlie says Thriller was my favorite 80s song. That song and music video rocked my world. I still want that jacket. I don't know if I'll ever get it. It's hard in big guy sizes.
Long form music video. Yeah, that was pretty awesome. I think that rocked. I think when that came out, it rocked everybody's world. It was an event. Yeah,
for sure. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and shift gears a little bit and talk about Disney Pixar's Soul. If you have not yet seen Soul, feel free to hang around. Again, we're going to talk about it for about 10 minutes, spoiler free, before we give a spoiler warning. So, if you don't mind hearing our thoughts, or, you don't even care about spoilers, that's up to you. Hang around. You make the decision. You have your own agency. But here we go. Our discussion of Soul. All right. So we tend to come down very favorably on these Disney Pixar films. Of course, one of these films coming out during the time of COVID when you can't necessarily see it in movie theaters. Maybe it changes the landscape. I don't know. We can talk about that. But Will, what is the basic setup for this film? And what was your experience? What'd you think?
Yeah, so Disney's Soul. I'm going to read the IMDb description and then kind of go off of that. This is listed as a musician who has lost his passion for music is transported out of his body and must find his way back with the help of an infant soul learning about herself. That is a very simplistic way of describing everything that happens here, but I think that it works for the sake here. We have Jamie Foxx as this character who is sort of on the cusp of maybe making something in music, although he's had a lot of failed opportunities in the past and, hasn't really taken off the way that he would like. And then he dies. But in the afterlife, instead of moving on, he takes on this I want to say he unwillingly takes on the role of mentor to Tina Fey, who is this soul that has not yet been born into the world, and the two of them go on some adventures as they learn about what it means to live and what it means to be one another. I really liked this. First of all, it's great animation. That's Disney Pixar. That's almost like a cop-out at this point, and the animation is very beautiful, especially the kind of the way everything had sort of like a fuzzy sort of haloed look to it. There's a certain amount of rendering that happens with those types of effects that it definitely makes this cutting edge in a way that Inside Out was, with the way that it used the little bubble physics and stuff like that. I thought the story was pretty good. There are a couple of parts where it drags a bit. This did not top my list for the year, although it ranks pretty high. There are a couple of parts that drag a little bit, and maybe the ending is a little bit Pat in some places. There's a wonderful combination of original music and scoring. Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross do some of the music on this, and it is just an amazing score. There's so much to love about this movie. I'm gonna strongly recommend it. I don't think this is gonna be like, when we're doing our ranking the Pixar movies top to bottom, this isn't like one of my like top 3 or whatever. But I like this. I liked it a lot, and I think most families are going to have a fun time with it.
All right. Big, strong recommend for Will. Speaking of families having a great time with it, Mary Kay Meadows, who has a family, they watched this film, said Soul was super cute. Very different, but cute. Great message. And it had music that kids don't get introduced to too much. Yeah, I can't think of any kids I know who probably have listened to jazz music, as children. Maybe if I had, I'd like jazz music. I don't know, but that's a whole other can of worms. But Mary, so glad to hear that you and the fam enjoyed this film, maybe as much as Will did. Jim, how about for you? Are you in line with Mr. Lindis, or did it strike you differently?
I don't know, maybe a little bit differently. And so we know that Disney Pixar really doesn't make many bad films. I mean, we can talk about, was there an airplane movie at one time, and there was a Cars 2 was kind of bad. But lately they've kind of been on a roll. And I see this movie as akin to the Inside Out movie that came out several years ago now, which I thought was fantastic, like probably top tier Pixar for me. And I see this movie as kind of akin to that, like whereas Inside Out was more of a movie about human feelings and kind of the mind from a kid's perspective. This one is from an adult's perspective, kind of like the other side of the other end of life, like midlife or whatever you want. And what I was shocked about with this movie was how it just didn't land for me. Like, Pixar movies will make me cry generally, right? They have their moments that'll make me cry. This one didn't have that. But I appreciated this film, what it was trying to do, and the message is fine. I thought the movie making was great, animation, and it was mostly pretty interesting, except for the little bubble people, which really didn't do much for me. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like a soulless person, like presenting that this movie just didn't land for me. I get the message. That somebody's passion isn't their life and isn't their soul, whatever. But I just didn't feel the gravity of what was presented in this movie, and so it didn't land like I would have expected it to. Still a good movie. But not one that I would kind of go back to and want to watch and cry again with, like something like Inside Out. I think it's and that's what we do. It seems like with Pixar movies, we like to compare them to other Pixar movies and rank them, right? And I don't want to get into ranking. I just know that I was surprised how little I felt for this movie, and there were some great scenes I loved. There's a scene kind of plopped in the middle of this movie that I really dug, and we'll talk about probably that being that has to do with hair. Probably one of the strongest scenes in the movie, but the rest of it just kind of didn't resonate as strongly as I expected it to. So I think I'm going to be the soulless one of this review.
Your name is now officially the soulless.
Yeah, I also, and I want to talk. I know Mary's. I don't know if Mary's still on. I want to hear a little bit about how her kids reacted to this movie, because I watch it and I almost I can't see where the hooks are to get kids interested in watching this movie.
Well, maybe we'll hear a little more from Mary about the kiddos.
Yeah.
Adrian Charlie says, "Stepping out, gents. I love you and miss you." Adrian, we love you to pieces, my friend. Can't wait to see you. But he mentions Soul is terrific. I had a good, quiet, manly cry near the end. Love the message that was delivered. I don't know what makes a cry manly versus not, and I suspect sarcasm, knowing
That-
Adrian
that
anyway.
stoic cry.
Yeah, that stiff
Yeah.
upper lip, but
I
like
only-
the tears coming down.
I only
Yeah.
saw my dad cry 3 times in his life. That type of cry.
Yeah, exactly. Kevin Ryan says it's a fun movie. Not in my top 10 Pixar movies, but certainly not bad. New York is mostly portrayed very accurately. And Kevin, that's such a great point to raise. I've only been to New York City a couple times in my life. I really, really want to go back again. Post-COVID, there's like a trillion places I want to visit now. But New York City in the fall is one of them. And, this film is set in New York City in the fall. Will, you mentioned sort of the art style of this film. When they're down on Earth and we get to see like nature's beautiful fireworks in the trees and, even like trash blowing on the street. I don't know. There's a certain romanticism of New York City that this film brings, especially when you mix in, even though I don't personally like a lot of jazz music, just people playing jazz music, like in a club or walking down the street, someone's playing a saxophone on the side of the street. The city really feels like full of life. Like reality is just sort of breathed into it. The city is as much a character, I think, than the other characters in this film are. So I really appreciated that the movie did that. I want to talk about this phenomenal cast. Jamie Foxx, of course, as our main character, Joe. Tina Fey as 22. Fun to see her show up. Sometimes for me, a little of Tina Fey goes a long way. But I actually forgot it was Tina Fey like 5 minutes into the movie. It was just 22 for me. Tina Fey, if I were wearing a hat, I would tip it to you because, I see you in fucking credit card commercials all the time. Excuse my language, talking about a Pixar movie. And they make me cringe, but you did not make me cringe in this movie. In fact, you made me cry a little bit. So congratulations for that. But the real standout of this film for me, you guys, is Felicia Rashad as Joe's mother, Libba. We'll talk more about the relationship between her and Joe in spoilers, but just so great to see her show up and in such a great role. Of course, Angela Bassett is Dorothea Williams. Anytime Angela Bassett shows up in something, I'm just like hopping up and down inside. I adore her so much. Such a great body of work. But overall, I absolutely loved this film. I think it has a fantastic message. I can't wait to talk more about this with you folks in spoilers. I'm just going to say it's changed my outlook on life and the way that I live my life in a really good way. So Thank you, Disney Pixar, for giving me that beautiful gift right before the end of 2020, probably when I needed that gift the most. I'm appreciative. So, big, huge recommend from me.
And that makes such sense, Brad, because, this is the type of movie that's designed to make you examine the way that we interact with life and mortality and all of those types of things. It's full of those big concepts, but sort of wrapped around the small moments. And I think anytime that's a fun, or not fun, but that's a good message. But I think specifically this year, it has been an even especially resonant message, right? Like, I think that we don't have those opportunities to explore some of those small like micro moments that we get. I live in Austin, live music capital of the world, and there are times when you just go downtown and you walk, not just like during like festival time, but just, there'll just be some band, some person just playing at this place right here, and then you walk 5 steps down and you hear someone else playing a completely different genre of music, and you have whole streets like that. And I haven't experienced that in a year now. I missed that. I've missed a lot of those little micro moments, but I think I'm with you, Brad. I think there's also learning to appreciate the moments that we do have and the things that are around us. That has been a very positive takeaway from this movie.
Yeah, when we get into spoilers, I want to talk a little bit about kind of how the movie wrapped up kind of at the end. And I think that robbed a little bit from me, although I might understand why they went that way. Because, we're dealing with heavy subject matter here, right? The guy has basically died. or he's in a coma or something, right? So, um, you know,
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I don't want to go into sport.
We'll get to that.
Let's put a pin in that for now.
Yeah.
Jim, to your earlier question though, before we go to spoilers, Mary Kay Meadows has the Meadows Family Report. She says Parker has watched Soul 4 or 5 times at this point, and when I asked him what he liked, he said the music and the bubble guys. But apparently he's asleep, or she'd ask him some deeper questions. Mary, I would say that's fair criticism from Parker, Movie Bears podcast,
and he's like 32. Is that right?
Critic in training.
Yeah, he loves the music. He loves the bubble guys. We'll take it.
I think those are both incredibly fair things to point out here. So glad to hear that he enjoyed it so much. Jim, Will, spoiler time.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Bare our souls here.
All right. Spoilers for Disney Pixar's Soul are officially about to become a thing. If you have not yet seen Soul, now is your opportunity to step away for about 15 minutes and then come on back at the end if you want to hear our plugs. We'd certainly love it if you did. We might have some cool things to put on your radar. But spoilers are officially happening. And let's kick this back over to Jim, because Jim, I think before the spoiler jump, you were kind of digging at something a little bit. I want to make sure we get a chance to air that out and talk it through.
Yeah, I think this movie, back to missed opportunity. I think this movie had a chance to nail me at the end, and it just kind of sidestepped it, because at the end, our main character gets we decided to give you a second chance. And I think that's kind of exactly the quote in the movie. And I'm like, come on. Like, that's a huge cop-out. I think part of the emotional tug of this movie was to see, like, how this gentleman, you know, lived his life and kind of the regrets he might have at the end of his life, with no consequences whatsoever, kind of. And I don't know, it weakened the message of the movie for me in a way that I know that it probably had to do, because I don't think it could have any other way. But look at what some other Pixar movies have done with the subject of death, like Coco, for instance, right? Dealt with it fantastically, mostly because of the folklore around that culture and so forth. But I just wish this movie had done something a little bit better with that, other than kind of yanking the rug out from under me a little bit. And I'm like, wait, what? He's getting a second chance. Okay, great. Yeah, so I just don't like it when movies cop out that way.
I don't disagree. I think that I feel like the ending was impactful for me. I do think that I'm an absolute sucker for movies that are about mortality, like especially ones that are sort of like esoterically about mortality. I think just the kind of the pondering of like why we're meant to be here and what happens after we pass and what it means to live a valuable life and what it means to sort of like look back and reflect on that in the moments before we pass. Those types of movies tend to go towards top of my list and just absolutely wreck me. And this one hit me, but I wasn't devastated. I was not destroyed by this one. And I think it was because I think maybe that ending is a bit of a softball. At the same time, I do understand why they would do that. This movie had gotten both some praise and some criticism before the movie had ever come out for being kind of the first Pixar movie to have a sort of a black character present, not just a black actor, but a black character appear and have a kind of a story about, what it is to be black. And I think that they probably wisely decided not to kill off their only black character to date right now. And I get why they would do that. I get why that's an important message. But I also get why that would kind of rob it of some of its emotional state. I was actually thinking that they could find a way of sort of marrying the two a little bit. And again, you don't rewrite a movie, but at the same time, like we kept seeing through the movie, this character was so damn good at teaching people. Mm-hmm. He was really good at making people kind of understand what their passion was. I would have loved if maybe they had given him sort of like a kind of a split the difference sort of ending. Like, hey, your time on Earth is gone. That's what it means, like we pass, we go. But you've mentored someone in the way that all of the greatest minds and figures in all of humanity couldn't. What if you stayed and helped the new souls? That I think could have maybe done the, and again, not to rewrite the movie, but if I were in the writer's room, I probably would have gone somewhere around there.
Yeah. I think it's a fair criticism to make, babe. I think for me though, like, especially because this is a kids movie, like if the main character stays dead, like that impacts children,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think about like All Dogs Go to Heaven. Did you see that as a kid, Will?
Oh yes. I wore out that cassette.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, spoilers for All Dogs Go to Heaven, but like that dog comes back, helps the little girl, and then, goes away again. And I love that movie and it's great. But like when I look back on that movie, which was very formative in my child years, I still feel incredibly sad about All Dogs Go to Heaven. So like, I don't fault Disney Pixar, I guess, for giving this film a happy ending. It's supposed to be a kids movie. Do I agree it would have made it bittersweet, more poignant and stronger? Yes. But I'm completely okay with the direction they chose. And in fact, I think the way that they end it really ends up sort of reinforcing the message of this film, which we've kind of danced around a little bit, and maybe we can define it a bit. To me, it felt like this movie was trying to say the focus of life isn't like reaching that next great milestone. It's not, going after those things that you think you want. The focus of life is life. It's enjoying living and being in the moment and just seeing where things take you and not being so focused on what we frickin' think we want, and need. And when I mentioned earlier that this movie has kind of changed the way that I look at my life, like, not to get too personal, but I have had a lot of things that I've been wrestling with, as many have, over 2020 and COVID. And even before that, things I want in my career, things I want in my personal life, maybe wishing that I made more money, maybe questioning, not playing football in high school and becoming a super megastar. Just kidding. But like, I look back. You just want to be the towel boy in the college football locker room.
Jim's incorporating that into some role play.
that was my passion and goal. Right.
But I look back, I'm going to be 40 next month, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I look back at my life and, this movie's absolutely right. Like every part of my life has always been, well, I'm going to be happier when I get this job. I'm going to be happier when I make this amount of money. I'm going to be happier when I get that Nintendo 64. And yeah, maybe you are a little happier at first when those things happen, but like you go back to being the same person. You go back to still wanting other things. And so, I don't know, this movie had a pretty magical message for me. I'm being like the guru guy on the street corner, not necessarily spitting a sign, but I'm just trying to be at peace with living and enjoying my life one moment at a time instead of setting a bar for myself that I'll be chasing until the day I die.
Yeah, I think this movie made that message so beautifully and clearly in the barbershop scene.
Yes.
He's getting his hair cut, and the guy who's been cutting his hair for years is like, hey, he says to the guy who's cutting his hair, says, didn't you want to be, I forget what he wanted to be. He was like going to be a
firefighter or something?
A firefighter or an athlete or something. And he says, and here you are, you're ended up cutting hair all day. He says, yeah, but I love it. I love my life. You know what I mean? It's great to have dreams, but like, I do love what I'm doing and I get to talk to people all day. And he found a way to love that. And, I thought that scene was kind of magical. I just wish the rest of the movie had that for me.
Yeah. No, I get that. I get both of those points because I think that kind of getting at the end, even though like I could have ended it a little bit differently, I think that message is still super resonant. And I think that that's I think that Pixar is really good at for the most part, there's exceptions. I think Pixar is really good at sort of distilling a film down to like kind of the one message to take away from it and presenting it in such a way that it's both revelatory for kids and also to adults. I think that's the real magic of Pixar. The messages aren't be kind and share your toys. They're enjoy life. Their emotions are complicated. It's we can mourn and grieve for those that we've lost, but we can also cherish and move forward and carry their memory like a torch. These are all messages. These are complex messages that we as people in our who are not kids wrestle with now. And I think that I feel sort of fortunate I feel like these kids are fortunate to have these movies as sort of like lampposts for them.
Oh, absolutely agree. And Kevin clarifies for us that the barber wanted to be a vet. That's what it was.
Right. That's right.
I knew it was something like that. But I think about myself as a child and other people I knew that as kids, we all kept having ideas about what we thought we wanted to be when we grew up, right? Whether it was a vet or an astronaut or president of the United States. Like, society is messed up in a way in how it tries to train kids that, like, you can be anything you want if you set your heart and mind to it. There's a romanticism there that I love, but like the reality of life, not every kid is going to get to grow up and be president of the United States if they want to. Not every kid is going to get to grow up and be a wonderful piano player if they want to, if they don't have a natural proclivity toward music, right? So I almost think society is disingenuous in a way with regards to that. And I love that this movie kind of teaches a message that, like, hey, your purpose isn't to figure out what freaking job you can do. Your purpose is to just know yourself and know the people around you and love them and be with them and just go sometimes where life takes you. And so, just like that barber who wanted to be a vet and ended up cutting hair, I feel like the most interesting moments of my life are the ones that were completely unexpected and not on the radar of my plans at all. So, Jim, I agree. I think this movie does have some opportunities. When I think about all the best, Pixar movies, in my mind, I see Arlo over your shoulder. That's one of my favorites. I don't think Soul even comes close to me in terms of being as good as, say, The Good Dinosaur or, some of the other films. I'm really glad that we have this film, and I think it does some really, really amazing things. Mary mentioned it spoke a lot to what great teachers and mentors can accomplish in the lives of others. I think we take that for granted sometimes, but does anybody here not remember the name of their favorite teacher growing up?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that actually, Mary knows one of my favorite teachers growing up. Actually, her mother was my biology teacher.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
that's amazing.
That's
big
awesome.
shout out there. I think that's absolutely true. Like some of the, I'm not a parent, but I have some. Our sort of like work-life balance as human beings, or at least in the States, is parents have to, in a lot of cases, both parents have to work just to be able to like afford housing and food and all of that type of stuff, because that's just sort of like the situation that we've set up. So kids spend a good portion of their time with these other adults in these institutions of learning, and they become these incredibly formative teachers and role models and guides to help shape them into the human beings and the adults that they're going to be. And I feel even more like proud of my teacher friends and also like empathetic for them right now, because they're having to do all of this. You're having to control a group of 20 to 30 rowdy kids on Zoom instead of like in a classroom in a physical space. So I lost the plot of that just a little bit. Just like, teachers are wonderful, I guess, is the major point I'm making.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Kevin brings up another good point too. He says Black culture being represented, even if only at a surface level, with the barbershop and the jazz clubs, could be just as impactful to kids as the other messages the movie tells. Kevin, I love that you brought that up, because that's so true. If we look at a lot of these other Pixar films that are so formative for a lot of kids, I think that representation is so missing. So that just like adds another layer to this,
right,
that excites me about this film.
And Pixar has strived to do that. I think, obviously, with Coco, they did, a similar thing, much more immersive in that culture, right? Than even this movie was, I think. And I, I will give a ton of credit to Pixar for bringing forward these original story ideas, right, and putting them on film. It's not just another, retreaded or remade film from the Disney vault that they're doing. They're trying to put impactful original stories in front of both adults and children, and that's a tall order. Sometimes they hit it out of the park, sometimes they hit a triple, sometimes they hit a double. And so, but good to them for stepping up to the plate and doing that. I give them all the credit in the world.
Yeah. 100%. Representation matters so much. It's why, it's why we celebrated Coco. It's not the only reason why we celebrated Coco, but it was one of the major reasons to celebrate Coco. It's one of the major reasons to celebrate this. It's why we celebrated, even though they weren't as good by comparison, but we celebrated things like Love, Simon and Happiest Season, mainstream representation of LGBTQ themes. It's why, I work with an LGBTQ film festival to help, elevate these. Yeah. I think the more and more that we can get sort of like these stories out in front of people, I think people learn empathy. A lot of times people learn empathy through media, unfortunately. So one of the ways that we can help make people better to each other is to put more of that representative media in front of them.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. I mean, it's a big cauldron, big melting pot. Let's mix it up a little bit. And we need to add more spice, add more stuff to the sauce, because that's what makes the world go round.
Can we please just not add peas? That's all I ask.
Or black olives.
So now I know what y'all's least favorite foods are.
Sorry, Will, were you going to get us some kind of like vegan pea and black olive?
Peas for you, olives for me. Yeah, leave it off.
I was just having a conversation with someone the other day about how, like, I like black olives, but if you put them on on my pizza, that's a cardinal sin. Like, no, black olives are good, something, but not on my pizza. Oh, hell no.
Oh, goodness. Well, listen, pizza played a big part in this film, New York City street pizza. Even the rats love it.
Yeah.
Let's close this discussion with a question similar to the one we had with Wonder Woman. Will, what is your current favorite pizza topping?
Okay, so my go-to pizza is, I know this is not going to be for everyone, but I'm okay with that. I go very simple. I take Roma, like most places you can just get Roma tomatoes and bell peppers. So that's my go-to pizza topping.
All right, Jim, how about you?
I'm going to say sweet red peppers. Sweet roasted red peppers are my favorite.
Oh, yes.
Ooh. I love the smell, not so much the taste, but it seems like a solid choice. For me, you guys are going to kill me. You're going to kill me. It's pineapple. I know, throw things at me. I'm a terrible person.
No, I love it. Pineapple 100% belongs on pizza.
Yes. Someone supports me.
If you could only have one topping on your pizza, it would be pineapple over pepperoni.
In a heartbeat. I love pineapple on pizza. Yeah. Completely.
Okay.
Oh, and if I have to pick just one, take the tomatoes off and I'll go with bell pepper. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Very good. Well, let's close this thing up with some plugs. Part of the show where we put some things on your radar that we love. Maybe you will too. I just wanted to remind everybody that season 3 of Cobra Kai is out. It came out New Year's Day. If you have not yet seen season 1 and 2 of Cobra Kai, they're all on Netflix now. As well as the new season. We started watching the show again from the beginning, introducing a friend who's with us on the show right now, Kevin, to the series. And I'm having, do people say hella anymore? I don't know. I'm having a hella good time going back through this series. Cannot wait to start the new season. Hopefully we can do that soon, babe. I know we've also been getting into my second plug for tonight, which is Dexter, all of which is available for streaming right now on Hulu. We've been going through the first season of that. We're like 8 episodes in, and holy shit, that show is amazing. No spoilers, please. But I'm kind of thankful for quarantine. We're getting some really good stuff to watch. So
We are not. We are not in a show hole by any
Not
stretch of the imagination.
not a show at all. I'm excited to hear your thoughts as you go through Dexter. I just wish they had made a final season and it just didn't just peter out. The last season's not great, but everything else is good. Everything else is really good.
Well, the good news is they're bringing Dexter back for a limited series. They've got the actors coming back, and that's coming out in 2022.
Might get your wish, Will.
It's one of the reasons why I wanted to watch the show, because I figure it'll take us at least that long to probably get through it. But we love you too, Mary. Good night. Thanks so much for hanging out with us.
Thanks for coming around, Mary.
Yeah, always a pleasure. Say hi to the fam for us. But let's move on down to Jim. What have you got for plugs?
Okay. You guys know how much I love documentaries and how much I love music. And when you put the two together, sometimes you get a really good film. And I found another one on HBO Max called The Bee Gees, How Can You Mend a Broken Heart? A really, really great, surprisingly great, like music documentaries can be very, very stale, very by the numbers. This one felt fresh. I was really interested the whole way through. I think we were watching it and Brad came in like partway through and he's like instantly transfixed as soon as, even though he didn't see the beginning. It's an exploration of the history of the Bee Gees from their beginnings to where kind of they are now. And I think what gives it a resonance for me is, number one, I was alive and listening to music through a lot of their career. So I love their early stuff, which is really great. Then you get into their disco stuff a little bit later on, and we know what happened to disco. And this documentary covers that, the backlash against disco and what it did to the Bee Gees and what it did to the members of the Bee Gees. And also, a lot of it is from the oldest and the only remaining member of the Bee Gees, Barry Gibb, and reflects back on losing his brothers, Maurice and Robin, and also Andy Gibb, who was big on his own. It's a really great documentary. It's on HBO Max. If you got HBO Max to watch Wonder Woman, is it Wonder Woman 1984? Yeah. Then go ahead, before you cancel, go ahead and watch the Bee Gees. How Can You Mend a Broken Heart? It's really great.
Hey, Jim.
Yeah.
How deep is your mom?
Well,
I don't know if this is a spoiler. They showed a clip from a Bee Gees concert, and someone had a big sign that said, "How deep is your mom?"
That was bad. Yeah.
So we've been singing that a lot.
In the movie.
How deep is your mom?
Now you just talking to know. Anyway.
Oh my God. It's the Very Good Talk Show.
Oh my gosh. Well, great pick, sweetheart. Yeah, super, super great doc. I've been listening to the Bee Gees almost nonstop for like 3 days now since we got back from the cabin. So, yeah, definitely a good one. Will, how about you? What is our final plug of the evening?
So I'll do two in their light because one's a TV one. There's a show on Netflix right now called Alice in Borderland. I'm enjoying quite a bit. It's a Japanese show. These people in Tokyo just suddenly end up in an alternate version of Tokyo where almost no one is there, and they're forced by something to play these games just to sort of survive. Think sort of like an escape room / like Hunger Games / Battle Royale type thing. Pretty intense. And the other thing I'd like to plug is I'm going to plug 25 movies at the exact same time. And in doing that, I put together like my favorite movies of 2020 and a little video countdown thing. So I don't know if show notes or whatever, but just my little video countdown of a bunch of movies, especially a few that I kind of caught up with towards the end of the year. Sort of like had a good time sort of compiling and re-celebrating just some of the more fun moments, especially after I did a lot of the editing on it right after I watched Wonder Woman 84. So it's really nice to sort of like celebrate some things instead of sort of like living in that sort of sinkhole of negativity that I felt after watching that movie. So yeah. Fun movies last year.
Well, good work on that video. I second that plug. it's obvious how much effort that you put into that because of how well it came out. I wish there was some movies on there that I totally agree with, and then there are some movies on there that I'm jealous because I can't see right now, and you're pissing me off with this thing. So you need to stop it right now.
I'm gonna stop. Oh my gosh.
Oh goodness. All right. Well, awesome. All right. Well, I think that about wraps us up for this week. Jim, if people want to chat movies or whatever between now and our next recording, where can people find you?
Yeah, please do. If anybody wants to talk movies or whatever with me, find me on Twitter at JJPOutWest, all one word, my initials plus Out West. Or find me on Facebook under my name, Jim Pugliafico.
All right. Awesome. Will, how about you?
Yeah, I'm talking movies and politics over on Twitter. I'm at Whatever Cove. If you're watching live right now, you can see how that's spelled on the screen. You can find me on Facebook. Just look for William Lindis. Send me a message first so I know who you are. And then also anything that I see, I log at letterboxd.com. I think you can just search for William Lindis there as well. Give me a follow there. I'd like to follow you back so I can see your lists.
All right, excellent. And you can find me on Facebook. Just search for Brad Harris. I'm the one who likely has Bear Chub Chaser friends in common with you. You can also find me on Twitter and Letterboxd at iBradPro. It's up here on the screen. I always have to figure out which way I'm pointing because cameras are weird. I know. It's
anyway, right next to Wonder Woman's arm.
Over there.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, just want to say a great big thank you to everybody who joined us on the show this week. We had a ton of folks, a lot of chat going. We didn't get to read every comment, but as always, it's such a pleasure to have such a great group of listeners joining us for the show, sometimes week after week after week. Thank you for your love and support of the Movie Bears podcast as we kick things off into our 9th year. Wow, crazy. We're swiftly approaching episode 400.
Yeah.
391, 9 more episodes, and we'll be there. Another big milestone. So that's coming up, but much love to all of you. Stay safe, stay sane. We'll see you all next time. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.